Gaining a sense of power. So over the past 20 years, we've done a lot of research about power, and we've asked a lot of people, besides a lot of the existing literature and philosophy and theories about power. What we've also done is asked people how they think about power themselves, what this word means to them. And we've interviewed dozens of people, and one of the things that really stands out is that when you start asking people about power, there is a tendency for people to emphasize how little power they have themselves, how much power other people have, or at least that other people have more power. And at the same time, they do often argue that power does determine how things are, because often power is given as an explanation for things not changing or things not happening. So power and vested interests is often seen as an impediment to change. And the interesting theory is that when you start asking people who does have power, and even if, for instance, if you interview people in a certain city or in a certain sector like energy, at some point you notice that one particular company or one particular government department is mentioned very often by everyone as being the powerful one, or the organization with the most power. But then when you go to the people that work at that organization or that government department, they often emphasize their relative powerlessness, because either because they're part of a competitive market, or because they have certain shareholders, or because they are part of a bigger government situation. So you really see this very interesting dynamic of what we call the cycle of powerlessness, that even the actors that are pointed to by others as being the most powerful often do not consider themselves to be powerful. And if you then combine this with the interpretation that power does determine how things go, this really shows how you get to a situation where nobody moves and everybody is waiting for each other. So this has led me in my PhD thesis 10 years ago to argue that powerlessness, or the perception of powerlessness, is actually a greater impediment to change than the power of vested interests. Yeah, because often it's argued the other way around. Vested interests and people who have power are seen as the problem. Or people that are considered to have power are seen as the problem. But I would argue that actually this perception of powerlessness is often also just as much an impediment. So I would not, maybe after 10 years, I've started to wonder whether it's really a greater impediment, but it's at least as great. And based on this argument, the main challenge, one of the main challenges for change and innovation, is gaining a sense of power and understanding how power works, but also what kind of power you have. So once a person wants to contribute to change and innovation, one of the first things is to gain a sense of power and agency and understand how it works. And this also comes with developing a language to talk about power, because we notice that power is often a taboo topic. It's seen as something that is very far away, as something that is in the hands of elites at high levels. So there is a need to develop a power language to talk about how power works within one's own specific context.
So how to come from gaining a sense of power and wanting to develop a language on power in social innovation and energy to actually doing that? Well, we think that it is important not to just approach it from one medium point of view. So instead of just talking about it, you can also involve other ways of expression, such as music, for instance. As part of the Power Lab that we organized, we invited people to contribute to a playlist that is about power in transition, which we got many, many responses to. Another way that can be very strong is visual. So what we did for the Power Lab is that we invited a graphic harvester, Carlota Cataldi in our case, to work with us to give a picture to the words that were shared among the participants. So there are many different ways in which you can use these different media to develop a language on power with the people around you. The way that we did it specifically during the Power Lab was by asking people to share an image that exemplified power for them. That was part of the preparation that we gave them. And then they had the opportunity to go into breakout groups for 5 minutes and discuss why they chose that image. And people brought all kinds of different images, from nature pictures that they took on holiday to corporate logos or artworks that they liked. So this was a very low threshold way for people to start with their own experience of power through a medium that is easy to communicate with. So this is a slide that we used to make it a bit more fun, because we were working online, of course. It shows me demonstrating how to change your virtual background to actually set your background with the image that you chose. So thanks to Carlotta, our graphic harvester, we have now this image to show for that exercise, which sums up all the different elements that people brought up in these conversations. So you can see the waves representing water. You see something about fragility and nature, music and art that was mentioned. So here, we also asked people to share one word to captivate their discussion and what they learned from the people in the group. So have fun.